maybe we could kick off with a brief introduction to this amazing
Go
new
ahead.
documentary. What can people expect?
Well, I'm hoping people learn about two wonderful women who have been, I'd like to say forgotten about, but they haven't been known to be forgotten, in the first place. So I'd like people to learn a bit about two fantastic women that contributed hugely in many ways, through art, printworking, business, embroidery, publishing, and even morale. They were responsible for improving the morale of a lot of Irish people abroad, and their contribution to all of many, many factors. And you'll just learn about these, as we call them, accidental feminists.
And tell us a bit about the genesis of the project, because like you say, everyone's much more familiar with W.B. Yeats, and often they were sort of credited as like the sisters of. So how did you kind of discover their story, and how did that collaboration begin to, I guess, unearth it and share it with the world?
I was doing a gig at 3 Arena, and I was wanting to project the names of brilliant women behind me that had inspired me. And of course, I was looking up and I was going through brilliant men and women, and predominantly women I wanted to put up. And I was going through all of these people. I was looking at W.B. Yeats, who I'm a fan of for a long time. And then I came across loads of different women that were involved within the arts in Ireland. Then I saw Lily and Lolly Yeats, and I thought, who are they? And then I discovered about them. And then I was horrified that I didn't know them before. Because I'm a fan of his, I'm a fan of Jack's, I'm a fan of John's, the father's. Jack, I've loved his artwork since I was about 17 years old. And the fact that I'd never heard of them, not even in the capacity of the Sisters of, I hadn't heard of them at all. So then when I delved, they were only then known as the Sisters of. And it upset me, because they're absolutely brilliant in their own right. And even if their brothers and their father weren't well known, they should be applauded and recognized for what they did alone. Within their own right, what they did was incredible, especially for the time.
I know you've worked with Maggie, your producer, on Voices of Ireland, another documentary. So what was that collaboration like?
So I was projecting their names onto the back. I discovered about them, and then I talked about them for anybody who'd listen. And I'd buy, there were a couple of books written on them. And so I was buying those secondhand online and sending them to friends and say, please read about these women. You're going to love them. And I was just going on about them since like 2016 or something. I was going mad. And then Maggie and I worked together on Voices of Ireland. We did a 2-part documentary for Sky Arts, music documentary, and we love working together and we adore each other. And I was telling her all about these sisters, and she said we have to do it. So she was like, what would your next project be? What would your ideal project be? And I said, it has to be the sisters. It has to be the Yeats sisters. She agreed. And then off we went, and we work so well together. I adore Maggie. I adore her. And we work predominantly with an all-female crew as a nod to what Lily and Lolly did.
And what was all that process like? Because I guess because the story hasn't been told in this way before, it was a bit like a treasure hunt, finding all the different pieces that are, stored in different places, hanging in different places, going back through old photos, talking to these amazing experts. What was all that process like? And were there any sort of hurdles along the way? What were some of the highlights and challenging moments?
Oh, God. Well, a lot of the stuff that we couldn't find, because it was commissioned by the Vatican. So it's gone into the vaults of theirs. We couldn't find a lot of the embroidery. So we had to go on a hunt for them, and we were looking for experts, and we were finding little pieces of their embroidery in like churches, behind the altar. And we were finding this extraordinary artwork behind the altar of this tiny church, and it wasn't that they were religious, they were commissioned. That's where their bread was buttered. So, you know, they'd get a good commission. They do a fantastic job. And then they did such a good job that the Vatican called and it was off sent to the Pope, you know, so you can't get hold of a lot of it.
And, you know, going through all that process, did you have a favorite piece that you found? I mean, it must have just, felt like I say, going through a treasure trove, you know, and just finding these amazing pieces, you know, and perhaps haven't been given the proper audience before.
One of the ones they had in the museum was of the Abbey Theatre, and I just thought it was so gorgeous. It was just so beautiful in the Abbey Theatre. It was just a beautiful piece, and the way they worked and the lines that they used within the embroidery and the movement. When you see them up close, it's a whole different ball game than you see a picture of it, you know, with the detail. And it was quite a bold piece, and it's a beautiful piece of artwork within itself, you know. Embroidery was often seen as a women's art form because it was acceptable at the time. And the fact that women in their way, and including Susan Yeats, used it, you know, as a proper art form to make beautiful pieces of art, as opposed to, you know, a little piece of embroidery. They were fantastic artists, yeah.
The other thing I was going to say is, of course, you know, we get to see sort of their lives, their artwork, but wow, what a snapshot as well of the time and how confined women were, unable to sort of earn money for themselves and be entrepreneurial, you know, even from within their own family, you know, sort of the letters and, you know, having to really kind of like battle all these restrictions. You know, it was even illegal to, I think, you know, hire workers for the press and things like that. We really quite shocked. I mean, I guess we know broadly that these things were true, but to actually realize the level of detail, just how radical it was that they were kind of setting all these things up and being so successful as they were.
I love their determination, and you know, that's why we were calling them accidental feminists within it, because they didn't particularly want to do that. They didn't set out on a mission to break down barriers. They initially had no choice. They had to fund the family, including their brilliant brothers and their brilliant father, and themselves. They were totally broke. And they had to fund everything. Then the way they did that, that's the extraordinary part. What they did in, you know, within them, they were seen as an irritation to their brothers and their father, often as an irritation, but also as a necessity. I mean, when John went off when their father, John Yeats, went off to be an artist in America, he asked would they sent him some money for a little while, and a little while turned out to be 11 years. That's a lot of support. That's a lot. Imagine if your father decided, I'm off to be an artist now, send me money for 11 years. You go, what? Hang on. They had to give up their life in many ways, but what they did with that was extraordinary. And when they started their own workforce and employed only women, which, as you know, was very risky for them to do. They could have been in a lot of trouble. But they created this really beautiful workforce that was very caring and loving. And it's what you see now people in workforces trying to do now, saying that they get better results. So when I was there in the museum looking at all the scrapbooks that they had, it was very clear of the love and the care that they had for everybody who worked for them, and the interest in their lives even after they left working for them. So, you know, people would come back and bring their children back, and they had a vested interest in the education of the girls that were working for them, the younger girls, and in the widows, in order to continue to make a good life for themselves and for the children. So I really loved that. I loved that they made every person feel special by making a poem about each one, drawing pictures of them, having days, you know, playing cards underneath the cherry tree. But make no mistake, that's not what their day was. That's how they kept the bond and the care going. But they worked their fingers to the bone. They worked day and night. Sometimes it must have seemed like I don't think sometimes Susan had a break at all. And they worked really hard. So all of the women that worked for them and with them, including, they were all so dedicated to what they were doing. and they really increased morale within Ireland of the people who emigrated, and the visual, certainly for the Irish at that time, within England, were really, really, really quite vicious, and it was continuous to see themselves as, you know, they were portrayed as monkeys, lazy monkeys, and so they'd consciously say, right, actually, this is who we are, and they'd create these beautiful prints and send them out with lovely poetry and songs, and make sure that people got them and sent them to each other. And so they'd a lot of love, but they'd so much dedication. So the embroidery, and what really gets me about them is they'd so many different parts to them that they could have picked one to be brilliant in. So one, they funded the family. Two, they started up, became brilliant embroiderers working under William Morris, like the best in the world, starting up a company of embroiderers to make beautiful art to send out to the world. They're commissioned by the church to then employ local women to do that, to then start up a publishing company that signed only new and upcoming, mostly new and upcoming writers, which was again another contribution to the arts, because they could have made more money if they signed somebody who was well known, and they could have just continuously put out people who are already successful and the books would sell. But they wanted to support up and coming writers, and they'd find unknowns, and then they'd make sure the books were lined with local beautiful handcrafted linen and hand bound, and I mean, in every area they took great care, and then within the workplace they made sure it was good, and then somehow they became amazing businesswomen. I mean, all of that to maneuver all of that, all of those different businesses at the same time, and be culturally thoughtful as well as talented. I just think they're extraordinary, and they're not known.
We will be hearing some new music from you. You know, you've got other gigs coming up. Like, what's next for you after this?
I'm writing away, so I can feel another album is on the way at some point, but I've made no arrangements for that. I'm filming another movie. A couple of the films that I've been involved in, they're coming out soon. And I'm doing my one-woman play, Mother of All the Beans, and I'm taking that's coming back, and that's coming to London with Peter Sheridan's play, but it's just myself, so no pressure. But it did well so far. And then I'm going on the road with Jules Holland, my dear friend Jules. So I'm a busy woman, and then I'm going to, myself and Maggie are having a chat for the screening of this documentary about the Yeats sisters. We're having a chat about what next, because we have a million ideas fizzling and we love working together. So we have too many ideas about what's next. So I'm busy, happily busy.
Thank you so much. You're absolutely prolific. And best of luck with all those things. And can't wait for everyone else to see this wonderful, wonderful documentary. Thank you for your time.